The fluorescent lights hummed quietly in the underground military research facility as Dr. James Miller stared at his computer screen, his coffee long forgotten and cold. His eyes were fixed on a pattern that shouldn't exist, a sequence in human DNA that defied everything he knew about genetics. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the analysis for the fourth time that night. The genetic markers appeared again, clear as day. They were hidden within what most scientists dismissed as junk DNA, but they were far too organized to be random. Dr. Miller had discovered them while comparing genetic samples from ancient warrior cultures, the Spartans, the Mongols, and other legendary fighting peoples. The lab around him was quiet at this late hour. Only the soft beeping of machines and the gentle hum of computers kept him company. Stretching, he walked to the large window that overlooked the testing chamber below, where volunteers from the military program would train and undergo physical assessments. His discovery had started with a simple question: why were some humans naturally stronger, faster, and more resilient than others? The military had funded his research hoping to enhance soldier performance, but what he found was far more significant. The door behind him opened with a soft whoosh. "Doctor, you're still here." Tom Parker, his research assistant, walked in carrying fresh coffee. "It's almost midnight." "Tom, come look at this." Dr. Miller waved him over, grateful for a second pair of eyes. "See these sequences? They're like locks, genetic locks, and they appear in every human sample we tested." Tom set down the coffee and leaned in close to the screen. "Locks? What do you mean?" "It's like..." Dr. Miller paused, searching for simple words to explain his discovery. "Imagine a safety deposit box inside every human cell. These sequences are like the box itself, but we can see that something's inside. Something big. High above Earth's atmosphere, in a cloaked observation post, alien eyes watched the facility with growing concern. The monitoring station had detected unusual energy patterns consistent with advanced genetic research. The observer, a tall, gray-skinned being, pressed several buttons on his console. The energy readings from the human facility were unlike anything they'd seen before. After centuries of watching humans fumble through their technological advancement, something had changed. Back in the lab, Dr. Miller was printing his findings. "Look at these comparison charts," he said, spreading papers across the lab table. "Every human has these locked sequences, but they're not random. They're designed. Someone put them there." Tom's eyes widened as he looked at the data. "But that would mean someone engineered the human race," Dr. Miller finished. "Or at least they modified us, a long time ago." A warning light flashed on the alien observation post. The observer quickly sent an encrypted message to the Galactic Council. "Humans approaching Class A genetic discovery. Intervention protocols may be required." In the lab, Dr. Miller pulled up a new set of scans. "The fascinating thing is, these locks, they're starting to degrade. It's like they were designed to last for a specific amount of time. And that time might be running out." "Is that dangerous?" Tom asked, worry clear in his voice. "I don't think so," Dr. Miller replied, excitement building in his voice. "I think it's intentional, like a time-release capsule on a galactic scale. Whatever's locked in our DNA, maybe we're finally meant to access it." The observer's message received an immediate response. "Send Research Team Alpha. Dr. Blue will leave the investigation. Maintain covered status. If humans have found the warrior gene matrix, everything changes." As Dr. Miller saved his findings and prepared to finally head home, he had no idea that his discovery had just put Earth at the center of a galactic power struggle. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a message from military command. "Meeting tomorrow, 800. Priority 1. New research partner arriving." The pieces were falling into place, and humanity was about to learn that their greatest weapons had been hidden within their own cells all along. The morning sun barely touched the military research facility's windows when Dr. Miller arrived for the meeting. His lack of sleep showed on his face, but excitement kept him alert. As he entered the conference room, he stopped short. A tall figure in a perfectly pressed white coat stood by the window. "Dr. Miller," General Roberts said, rising from his chair. "Meet Dr. Blue, our new research partner from the International Science Exchange Program." Dr. Blue turned, and Miller tried not to stare. The scientist was tall and thin, with unusually pale skin that seemed to have a faint bluish tint. His eyes were large and dark, and his movements were too smooth to be natural. "It's fascinating to finally meet you," Dr. Blue said, his English perfect but somehow off, as if he'd learned it from recordings. "Your genetic research has caught the attention of many international observers." Miller shook the offered hand, noting how cool it felt. He'd worked with enough military projects to know when something wasn't quite right. This was no ordinary scientific exchange. Later in the lab, Dr. Blue examined Miller's findings with intense interest. "You've discovered something remarkable in human DNA," he said, zooming in on the locked sequences. "My own research suggests these patterns are unique to Earth species, specifically to humans." Tom Parker worked at a nearby station, pretending not to listen while running routine tests. The military guards usually stationed outside had been doubled. "Unique?" Miller asked, watching Dr. Blue's reactions carefully. "How many other species' DNA have you studied?" Dr. Blue paused slightly too long before answering. "Many. From around the world, of course." They ran new tests together, with Dr. Blue bringing equipment that Miller had never seen before. The results were stunning. The locked genetic sequences responded to the new scanning technology, revealing layers of complexity that their previous tests had missed. "It's like a puzzle box," Miller said, staring at the three-dimensional DNA model floating above Dr. Blue's strange scanner. "Each layer protects something deeper inside." "Yes," Dr. Blue replied, his dark eyes reflecting the holographic display. "A puzzle box that only human DNA can unlock. You have no idea how extraordinary this makes your species." The way he said "your species" made Miller's skin crawl. By afternoon, the lab was buzzing with activity. Dr. Blue's equipment had mapped more of the locked sequences than Miller had found in months of research. But something was wrong. Every time they got close to understanding what the sequences protected, Dr. Blue would redirect their investigation to a different area. During a quick coffee break, Tom pulled Miller aside in the hallway. "Doc, I ran some background checks. The International Science Exchange Program. It doesn't exist." Miller nodded slowly. "I know. And our new friend isn't trying very hard to hide what he is anymore." Back in the lab, Dr. Blue made a breakthrough. "Look at this," he called them over. "The locked sequences aren't just stored data. They're more like compressed programs. When activated, they could rewrite portions of human DNA." "Rewrite?" Miller asked. "To do what?" "To restore something," Dr. Blue said softly. "Something your ancestors once were." The implications hit Miller like a physical blow. "You're saying humans used to be different, more than we are now." "Much more," Dr. Blue answered. His perfect posture seemed to shift, becoming less human-like as his excitement grew. "Your ancestors were powerful enough to make the galactic empires tremble. This was their gift to you. Their power, safely stored until you were ready to reclaim it." In the observation post above Earth, the Council received Dr. Blue's preliminary report. Humans have discovered the legacy matrix ahead of schedule. Their genetic structure is perfectly preserved. Secondary protocols are ready on your command. As Miller processed this revelation, military alarms began blaring throughout the facility. General Roberts burst into the lab, face grim. "We've got multiple unknown aircraft entering restricted airspace," he announced. "And they're not from any nation on Earth." Dr. Blue straightened, dropping all pretense of being human. "They're early," he said. "We're not ready yet." The legacy hidden in human DNA was about to be tested sooner than anyone had planned. The facility's warning sirens filled the air as Dr. Miller, Dr. Blue, and Tom rushed to secure their research data. Through the lab's reinforced windows, they could see military personnel running to their stations. "Those ships," Miller said, watching the screen showing radar data. "They're coming for our research, aren't they?" Dr. Blue's human disguise had completely fallen away now. His skin had taken on a clearly blue tint, and his movements became more fluid, almost liquid-like. "Not just the research," he said. "They're coming for test subjects. The Council has waited centuries for this moment." General Roberts coordinated the facility's defenses from the command center. "Whatever's up there," he said, pointing at the radar signatures, "they're not like anything we've seen before. They're not even trying to hide anymore." On the main screen, 3 massive ships hung in the sky, their dark shapes visible even in daylight. They were smooth, almost organic in design, stretching nearly a mile long each. Dr. Blue worked quickly at his console, sending data through his own communication system. "We don't have much time. You need to understand what you truly are." He pulled up a new holographic display, showing a historical record that made everyone in the room freeze. The display showed beings that looked almost human, but different. They were taller, stronger, with a faint glow under their skin. The images showed them performing impossible feats, lifting massive weights, healing from injuries in minutes, moving faster than the eye could follow. "These were your ancestors," Dr. Blue explained. "The warrior race. They were peacekeepers of the galaxy, but their power made others fear them. Instead of fighting a war that would destroy countless worlds, they chose to lock away their abilities." Tom stared at the images. "They chose to become normal. They chose to give their descendants a chance to evolve naturally," Dr. Blue corrected. "The locked DNA sequences were a safeguard, ensuring that when humanity rediscovered these abilities, they would have the wisdom to use them properly." An explosion rocked the facility. The Council ships had begun their approach. Dr. Miller pulled up their latest test results. "The genetic locks are failing because humanity has reached the right point in their development," he realized. "We're supposed to unlock these abilities now." "Yes," Dr. Blue confirmed. "But the Council doesn't want to wait for natural activation. They want to force it, weaponize it. They've been watching Earth for centuries, waiting for this moment." Another blast shook the building. General Roberts' voice came over the intercom. "We've got incoming troops. They're not human." Security feeds showed tall, armored figures emerging from smaller ships, their movements unnaturally quick and precise. They carried weapons that pulsed with strange energy. "We need to start the activation process," Dr. Blue said urgently. "If the Council gets here first, they'll force the change. It could drive your people mad with power, turn them into exactly what your ancestors feared." Dr. Miller looked at their research data, then at Tom. "We need a volunteer," he said. "Someone to test if we can control the activation." Tom stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll do it. Better to try it ourselves than let them force it on everyone." Dr. Blue quickly calibrated his equipment. "The process isn't perfect yet. There will be pain, and we don't know exactly what abilities will unlock first." The sounds of fighting grew closer. Through the security feeds, they watched Council troops advancing through the facility's defenses with frightening ease. "Do it," Tom said, stepping into the testing chamber. "We're out of time." Dr. Miller initiated the sequence while Dr. Blue monitored the genetic changes. Tom's body began to glow faintly, just like the ancestors in the historical records. His vitals spiked, then stabilized at a level far above normal human readings. Suddenly, Tom screamed. But it wasn't a scream of pain, it was something else. Power surged through the room, shorting out several pieces of equipment. When the emergency lights came back on, Tom stood in the chamber, his eyes glowing with an inner light. The first human Supersoldier had awakened. The question was, had they done it in time? Tom's transformation had changed everything. He stood in the testing chamber, his skin giving off a faint blue glow. The metal floor had warped beneath his feet from the energy he released. "How do you feel?" Dr. Miller asked through the chamber's intercom. "Strong," Tom replied, looking at his hands in wonder. "Really strong. And I can see everything so clearly." He moved across the chamber in a blur, faster than the cameras could track. Dr. Blue monitored the readings with growing excitement. The activation is stable. His body is accepting the changes perfectly. The facility shook again as more council forces landed outside. General Roberts' voice crackled over the radio. They've breached the outer defenses. Fall back to secondary positions. Suddenly, Dr. Blue's communication device lit up with a message. His face fell as he read it. "No," he whispered. "This isn't what we agreed to." "What's wrong?" Miller asked, noticing the change in his alien ally's behavior. Before Dr. Blue could answer, the lab doors slid open. A tall figure in gleaming armor stepped in, flanked by 4 soldiers. Unlike the other council troops, this one moved with authority and purpose. "Commander Gray," Dr. Blue said, bowing slightly. "The situation is under control. We don't need." "Your mission is complete, Dr. Blue," Commander Gray interrupted. His voice sounded metallic through his helmet speakers. "The Council has modified their orders. All human test subjects are to be collected immediately." Miller stepped between them and Tom's chamber. "Collected? These are people, not lab samples." "They are property," Commander Gray stated coldly. "The genetic modifications in human DNA belong to the Council. We placed them there." "What?" Miller turned to Dr. Blue. "Is this true?" Dr. Blue shook his head. "They're lying. The Council didn't create these modifications. They've been trying to steal them for centuries. The true warrior race hid their legacy in humanity because they trusted Earth to use it wisely." Commander Gray raised his weapon. "Enough. Secure the test subject and terminate the others." Everything happened at once. The Council soldiers moved forward, but Tom burst out of the testing chamber in a flash of blue light. He slammed into 2 soldiers, sending them flying across the lab. Their armor cracked from the impact. "Get the research," Miller shouted, grabbing their main data drive. Dr. Blue rushed to grab his equipment, but Commander Gray shot him with an energy blast that sent him crashing into the wall. Tom engaged the other soldiers, moving with incredible speed. His new strength let him match their advanced armor, but he was untrained, running purely on instinct. "The activation process," Dr. Blue gasped, pulling himself up. "It's spreading. The other humans in the facility. Their DNA is responding to Tom's change." Security feeds showed the truth. As Council forces pushed deeper into the facility, the defending soldiers began to change. One by one, they started glowing, their strength and speed increasing as their locked DNA awakened. Commander Gray saw it too. "Full assault. Take them before they all turn." Miller helped Dr. Blue to his feet. "Why?" he asked. "Why did the Council really come to Earth?" "Because they're afraid," Dr. Blue answered, watching Tom fight. "Afraid of what humanity will become. The warrior race chose your people for a reason. You have something the Council lost long ago." "What's that?" "The ability to care, to fight for others, not just power." The facility's lights flickered as more soldiers transformed. Tom had disabled the remaining Council troops in the lab, but Commander Gray was escaping, calling for reinforcements. "We need to get to the backup lab," Miller said. "If the Council wants this power so badly, we need to make sure all of humanity has a chance to unlock it naturally, not under their control." Dr. Blue nodded, gathering what equipment he could salvage. "The Council will bring their full force now. They'll try to either capture or destroy every human who's awakening." Above them, more Council ships appeared in the sky. The real war was about to begin. The backup lab deep beneath the facility was a maze of old equipment and emergency supplies. Dr. Miller, Dr. Blue, and Tom barricaded themselves inside while explosions rocked the building above them. "More soldiers are changing," Tom reported, his enhanced vision letting him see through the security feeds. His skin still glowed with a faint blue light. "But the Council forces keep coming." Dr. Miller studied the latest data on his screen. "Look at this," he called to the others. The transformations, they're happening faster when our people are in danger. It's like a defense mechanism. Dr. Blue checked the readings. Yes, the genetic locks respond to threat and necessity. Your ancestors designed it this way. The power awakens strongest when it's needed most. Above them, the battle rage. Every few minutes, another human soldier would begin to glow, their strength and speed suddenly matching their alien attackers. But the Council had numbers and advanced weapons on their side. General Roberts' voice came through their radio, sounding stronger than before. Miller, are you seeing this? My whole squad just changed. I can lift a tank like it's nothing. The transformation is spreading through the chain of command, Dr. Blue explained. Those with the strongest will to protect others are changing first. Suddenly, the facility's main power went out. Emergency lights cast red shadows everywhere. They're trying to force their way down to us, Tom said, moving to guard the door. They want the research and the activation process. Dr. Miller worked quickly, copying their findings to secure drives. If we can broadcast the activation sequence globally, give everyone a chance to change naturally. The Council will try to stop you, Dr. Blue warned. They want to control who gets this power. Free humans with the strength of the warrior race is their worst nightmare. The blast doors shook as something heavy hit them. Commander Gray's voice boomed from outside. Surrender the research. You cannot control this power. You'll destroy yourselves. Tom smiled, his eyes glowing brighter. Really? Because it looks like humans are handling it better than you expected. Through the security feeds, they watched in amazement. The transformed soldiers fought with more than just strength. They fought with teamwork and strategy. When one would tire, another would step in. They protected their unchanged companions and helped each other adapt to their new abilities. This is why the warrior race chose humans. Dr. Blue said softly, you don't just fight for power, you fight for each other. Dr. Miller finished the broadcast setup. How many will change once we send this out? Not everyone, Dr. Blue answered. The genetic locks release based on readiness and need. Those with the strongest desire to protect others will transform first. Others will change more slowly, as they prove themselves ready. Another explosion rocked the facility. The blast doors began to glow red from some kind of cutting beam. They're breaking through. Tom moved into a fighting stance. Dr. Miller looked at his computer, then at his companions. Should we do it? Release this to the whole world. Dr. Blue placed his hand on the broadcast switch. Your ancestors trusted humanity with this gift. The Council wants to steal it. What do you think? The blast doors started to melt. Do it, Tom said firmly. Better in everyone's hands than in the Council's control. Dr. Miller nodded and pressed the button. The activation sequence began broadcasting on all frequencies, spreading across the globe through every connected network. The doors burst open. Commander Gray stepped through with a squad of elite troops, weapons raised. But they stopped short. Behind Miller, Tom, and Dr. Blue stood General Roberts and 20 transformed soldiers, all glowing with power, their eyes bright with the strength of their ancestors. You're too late, Miller said. Humanity is awakening. All of us. And we choose how to use this power. The real war for Earth's future was about to begin. But now, humanity was ready. Commander Gray stared at the transformed humans blocking his path. His elite squad's weapons hummed with deadly energy, but they held their fire. Even through his helmet, his uncertainty was clear. Last chance, General Roberts said, his voice deep with power. Leave Earth. Let humanity develop on our own path. You don't understand what you've done, Commander Gray replied. The Council will never allow an army of superpowered humans to exist freely. Above the facility, the situation was changing rapidly. News channels worldwide broadcast footage of people transforming. Police officers stopping crimes with incredible strength. Firefighters becoming immune to flames as they saved people. Doctors developing healing powers as they worked to save lives. Dr. Miller watched it all on the emergency broadcasts. It's working exactly as the ancient warriors planned. The power goes to those who want to help others. Commander Gray raised his weapon. Then you leave us no choice. Full attack. For the Council. The battle that followed was unlike anything Earth had seen before. Tom moved like lightning, his months of training now enhanced by supernatural power. The other transformed soldiers fought with their new abilities as if they'd had them for years. Dr. Blue worked frantically at his console. More Council ships are entering Earth's atmosphere. They're deploying troops worldwide. But the Council had made a critical mistake. Their attack wasn't crushing humanity's spirit. It was triggering more transformations. Military bases across the globe reported soldiers transforming. Police forces, emergency responders, and even ordinary citizens protecting their communities began to glow with power. "They're running scared," General Roberts said, watching the Council forces retreat from another failed attack. They expected to find test subjects. Instead, they found an army. The facility's communication system crackled to life. Other military bases were calling in. "This is Pacific Command. Our forces are transformed and engaging alien ships." European defense reporting. Council ground forces retreating from transformed civilian resistance. Asian coalition standing by. Our transformed units are ready to coordinate. Dr. Miller looked at Dr. Blue. "Can we track their command ship?" Dr. Blue nodded, pulling up a holographic display. There, in high orbit, Commander Gray was just a field leader. The real Council leadership is up there, watching. General Roberts gathered his transformed troops. "Then it's time we show them exactly what humanity can do. Dr. Miller, can you activate the emergency broadcast system again?" Miller typed quickly at his console. "Ready." Roberts spoke, his voice reaching every transformed human on Earth. "This is General Roberts. The Council thinks they can come to our world and take what isn't theirs. They want to control the power in our DNA. But this power belongs to humanity, all of humanity. Together, we can show them why the ancient warriors chose us as their heirs." The response was immediate. Around the world, transformed humans began coordinating. Military pilots found they could fly without planes. Soldiers teleported between battles. Doctors healed entire emergency rooms with a touch. "Impossible," Commander Gray whispered, watching the global response. "Your species shouldn't be able to master these abilities so quickly." "You still don't understand," Tom said, standing proud with his fellow transformed humans. "We're not mastering anything. We're remembering who we always were." Dr. Blue's monitors showed Council ships beginning to retreat from Earth's atmosphere. The transformed humans were pushing them back on every front. "They're running," Dr. Miller said in amazement. "No," General Roberts corrected, his eyes glowing bright. "They're regrouping. This was just their first wave. The Council won't give up easily." Dr. Blue looked at his former commander. "You know he's right, Gray. You've lost this battle. What happens next depends on your choice." Commander Gray looked at his surrounded forces, then at the transformed humans ready to fight. Above them, more Council ships fled Earth's space, retreating from the awakened power of humanity. The first battle was over, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning. 3 days after the first battle, Earth had changed forever. The skies over major cities now had transformed human guardians floating on patrol. Hospitals had healing centers where powered doctors worked miracles. The world was different, but somehow better. Dr. Miller stood in the rebuilt main lab, watching news feeds from around the globe. Next to him, Dr. Blue worked on connecting their systems to his alien technology. "The Council's main fleet is gathering behind Mars," Dr. Blue reported, showing the massive collection of ships on his scanner. "They're preparing for one final attack." Tom walked in, his glow now controlled and steady. He'd been training other transformed humans, teaching them to control their new abilities. "Let them come. We're ready this time." The lab's doors opened as General Roberts entered with Commander Gray. The alien commander had surrendered during the first battle. choosing to help Earth rather than follow the Council's orders. The Council sent their final message. Gray said, his helmet now removed to show his crystalline face. They're giving Earth one last chance to surrender the genetic power and submit to their control. Dr. Miller looked at the latest transformation data on his screen. How many humans have changed now? About 15% of the global population. Dr. Blue answered. All of them people who stepped up to help others during the crisis, just as your ancestors planned. Suddenly, alarms blared worldwide. The Council fleet had begun its approach. They're not holding back this time, Gray warned. They've brought planet-killer weapons. General Roberts activated the global communication system. All transformed defense forces, take your positions. Remember your training. Remember why you were chosen for this power. Around the world, transformed humans rose into the sky. Military units teleported into position. Healers and support teams stood ready in protected bunkers. Dr. Miller, Roberts called. Are you ready to show them our surprise? Miller nodded, bringing up a special program he and Dr. Blue had developed. The Council thinks they know everything about the power in our DNA, but they never understood its true purpose. Through the lab's windows, they watched as transformed humans began to glow brighter than ever before. The ancestors' final gift was revealing itself. Together, Roberts commanded through the global channel. All around Earth, transformed humans linked their powers. Their individual glows merged into a massive energy field that surrounded the planet. The ancient warriors hadn't just left humanity with super strength and speed. They'd left them the power to unite as one. The Council fleet opened fire with their planet killers, but their weapons couldn't break through the united shield of humanity. Impossible. Gray gasped, watching his former master's strongest weapons fail. Dr. Blue smiled. No, this is why the warriors chose humans. No other species could work together like this, putting aside differences to protect everyone. The Council's attack faltered as their weapons had no effect. Then, humanity struck back. Transformed soldiers teleported directly into Council ships. Pilots who could fly through space without ships disabled the fleet's engines. The combined power of Earth's defenders proved too much for even the Council's mighty armada. Within hours, it was over. The Council fleet retreated, leaving behind a message. Earth would be recognized as a sovereign and protected world, free to develop its powers without interference. In the lab, Dr. Miller looked at his friends, human and alien alike. So what happens now? Now, Dr. Blue said, humanity takes its place among the stars. But this time, you'll do it your way, the way your ancestors hoped you would. Tom looked out at the glowing shield around Earth, maintained by thousands of transformed humans working together. And what way is that? As protectors, General Roberts answered, not conquerors. The power chose those who want to help others for a reason. Commander Gray nodded in agreement. The Council feared you would become like the ancient warriors. Instead, you've become something better. As the sun set on this new Earth, the transformed humans maintained their protective shield. It wasn't just a defense anymore. It was a symbol of what humanity could achieve when they stood together, using their power not for dominance, but for the good of all. The age of ordinary humans was over. The age of humanity's true potential had begun.